Good morning, everybody. This is Zach at it again. I'm your host, Zach Cooley, and we are doing something very special coming up on a monthly basis through the rest of 2022 and throughout 2023 with Strictly Observing. We will be doing a monthly spotlight on the different programs of the Wythe County Technology Center. And to start us off today, we have Mary Alice Watson, who is the instructor of culinary arts at Wythe County Technology Center. And we are going to be discussing the importance of that department. Thank you, Mary Alice, for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's an honor to be chosen for this project, and I hope that we can bring about the importance of all the programs offered at Wythe County Technology Center. Now, let's begin talking some about you and your career. How long have you been the instructor at Wythe County Technology Center, and how long have you been involved in teaching and instructing culinary arts?
This is starting my 19th year here at the Technology Center, teaching the culinary arts program. The first year that I taught, I did teach at Wythe High School, and then this program was closed at that time, and the principal at the time, which was Miss Debbie Stone, she wanted to reopen the food program here. So I started this, like I said, this is I guess it would be my 18th year for culinary.
Okay. Well, you mentioned somebody that's very, very special to me. It was 19 years ago, in fact, that I graduated from Wythe High School.
Really?
Yes, and Miss Debbie Stone was just a fabulous principal. In fact, I'm in a power wheelchair, and she transported me to and from both my proms, to and from my graduation, because I did not have a handicapped van at that time. I didn't have a date to my junior prom, so I actually my date for the junior prom was the assistant principal at the time. She may have been the principal at that time. But anyway, she was just a wonderful, wonderful lady and a terrific advocate for me and getting what I needed as a disabled student, and I will never, ever forget Miss Debbie Stone. I came to the Technology Center to interview her when she retired. I did a couple of articles on her then. I am a very big advocate of home ec, as it was 19 years ago when I was at Wythe High School. I took 3 years of home ec. And it is my belief that home economics, which at the time that I was in it, which combined cooking and sewing and life skills, and teach you how to balance a checkbook, teach you how to budget money, teach you how to read a recipe and measure a recipe. I think it should be a required course as opposed to an elective course, because they teach you things that everybody needs to know.
I agree with you 100%. If you don't go into this field in some capacity, you always need to know how to cook for yourself, because eating out is very expensive.
Right.
And sometimes not the best food.
Right.
But yeah, I think everybody needs to know that's just a good life skill to have, to how to bake and to cook, actually. So
yeah. How to, like, I remember very simple things that I thought were very interesting, like an egg is 3 tablespoons. And when we made muffins, we had to half an egg. So you had to know how much a half an egg was. So that was a tablespoon, 1.5 tablespoons. And, just little things like that. Sue Kidd and Janet Litton were my home ec teachers, but Ms. Litton was actually my neighbor growing up. I lived across the street from her. but Sue Kidd is another one that is very near and dear to my heart.
Yes, I taught with her a year and a half at the first year I started teaching at George Wythe. And then I think the next year she might have retired within a couple years after I started. So, but I still stay in touch with her, and she's always giving me advice. And, still to this day, I have to have some advice on how to do some things. So she's been she and Debbie Stone both have just been wonderful to, call if I have any questions, as far as some things go. And, but yeah, they're great, both great ladies.
Yep.
And from what I understand, when I did Miss Stone did reopen this program, I think it had been closed for approximately 13 years. That's kind of just stuck in my head. So we had to clean out the classroom. A lot of the equipment is still here today that was there. The stainless steel tables and things like that never, they stay forever. You can't destroy them. So, but we've had all new equipment put in, like as far as ovens and things like that. But our work tables and things, they were the ones that were here originally when I started.
Right. And as it was, 20 plus years ago, we had the home ec rooms were the first doors as you're walking across the street from the Technology Center. You go straight across that parking lot there and straight up that sidewalk and into that side door. And the first two rooms on the right were the home ec rooms. And
you are correct.
And separating the two home ec rooms were was the kitchen, and that's where I remember making biscuits and muffins and cupcakes and Red Lobster cheese biscuits. I even canned tomatoes at one point, and I wish I remembered how to do that.
Well, actually, I probably use that same cheddar biscuit recipe to start out with my kids each year, just to kind of learn measuring, and they love those biscuits, so that's one of their favorites. Something you can put with soup, or just with a salad. So a nice little side, and I said, so you don't have to go to Red Lobster to get the biscuits. You can get them here.
Yeah.
So and a lot of it, I tell my kids, we bake a lot because baking is so much cheaper on my budget for class. So we do a lot of baking, but we're getting more into the cooking aspect of it. But this is the time of the year that you do bake, and you find things more cost effective to purchase. Just even at home, if I see a good sale, I'll stock up on baking goods and store them. So. And
I don't know, are you a local native? I would assume so.
Yes, I grew up in Max Meadows.
Okay.
And went to Fort Chiswell and graduated from Fort Chiswell.
And speaking of wonderful bosses and administrators, as we spoke of Debbie Stone and Sue Kidd, you could not have a better boss than who you have right now.
Yes, and that's really funny. I've had two Miss Stones for bosses, so it's really kind of neat.
Yeah, and
she's been great, full of energy, and just does really well, and is always there for the teachers, and is there to back us up and help us with anything that we need. So you're absolutely correct on that. And
she was the one who approached me and said, let's do each one of these programs. And like I said, I don't have a lot of happy memories as far as my scholastic career in high school. I was obviously an English major, and beyond that, everything else I just had to muddle through. But I truly enjoyed learning to cook. And of course, I had an aide and had to have lots of help. But to be able to do certain things independently, such as set a table or dry the dishes, or, they were very helpful at meeting me where I was and making me feel like, I actually did this. I made a cake one year just in time for my mother's birthday, and I put icing on it and Mom and sprinkles, and it was a heart-shaped cake, and I was able to give that to her as a surprise, and she just went on and on about how good it was. And we try to do towards the end of the year, we try to do
I feel like everybody should know how to make a decorated cake. When they have kids one day, they won't have to go buy one, and the kids just get a real big kick out of it. But I try to show them, I try to do it catered around Mother's Day, Easter, so they can kind of do a theme and take it and maybe provide dessert at home. But they have a lot of fun. Now, there's lots of icing going through the room and flying around the room and powdered sugar and things like that. So it's kind of I tell everybody, I said, it's not expensive to make one of these cakes, but it's the time you put into it. And you've got to be able to charge for your time. If you go into a career or work at a bakery, just some of these things are just art pieces. And, people need to be willing to pay for that. Not that they're so expensive.
Do you find that your students are as far as cooking, I would say that would be a department that would be that students would be a little more engaged as opposed to some other trades? I do try to cook with them as much as I can. Right now, we're going to actually demonstrated, making pumpkin rolls today, and hopefully they'll all be making those next week to be able to take them home and share with their family for Thanksgiving. But, when I look for something for them to bake in class, considering my budget, I have to pick recipes that will kind of cover several of our competencies that have to cover that the state has us, follow our competency, CTE competencies. And so when I have to kind of just really look for the right recipe, with the pumpkin rolls, you're doing several techniques through that, plus you're going to make an icing, so you cover a lot of things there. And I would tell them, if you can make a pumpkin roll or an angel food cake, you can make anything, because they're both pretty hard to do and make them come out right the first time. So, but what I mean is, do you find that your students are more interested in culinary arts? Are they enthusiastic, I suppose, about their work?
They're enthusiastic about the hands-on part of it, not as much like any typical teenager wanting to do the bookwork and realizing there are techniques that you need to learn, and you need to know what the difference is between, folding or stirring, for instance, in a recipe, and that's where you come into baking. So obviously I would love to cook with them every day. And we do fundraising throughout the year to where we can cook more in class, but they're not very happy with the book part of it, I guess you would say. I think the TV has kind of ruined everybody. That hey, wham, 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 it just comes together, and it's not like that.
Yeah.
So, and I even have mess ups in the kitchen in front of them. I'll say, this is why you should read the recipe. I've messed this up because I thought I knew. I should have went back and read my recipe. So I even make mistakes, and I call myself on it in front of them so that maybe they'll learn. But when we're doing hands-on, definitely they're engaged in wanting to see, and they love everything that we make, and getting them to try different things. I don't know that when I was their age I would have ate pumpkin. I don't know that I'd ate pumpkin pie that much less pumpkin rolls. But anything we've made with pumpkin this year has been a hit. But I do try to get them to try some different things in class than what they're used to having at home or at school.
Now, how much of your curriculum is textbook versus hands-on?
I would say this group, I've had a really big group, and they've just been really good in the kitchen, and we've done good with, some fundraising throughout the year so far, and we're getting to cook a little bit more. I would say 40-60, 40% bookwork, 60% in the kitchen. I try to have them in there at least, 2 to 3 days a week. And then that's also including, like, if we get a catering event that they have to assist me with. So it may not be something we're doing, for instance, that we're covered in the book, but it's something that someone has called and said, can you make this for us? How much will it be, and things like that. And we've not gotten into the math part of it. That will be something that will be through our winter months, because that's one of those times I don't stock my refrigerator full because we never know if school's going to be in or not. So some of that stuff, we won't be baking as much through January or cooking, as much because of the weather. So I do have to watch that.
The differentiation for dumb people like me, baking versus cooking. To me, baking is a form of cooking, but you make a very clear distinction between the two. Cooking, I would assume, means on top of the stove, and baking is in the oven, right?
Yeah, so roasting or, cooking on top of the stove, or roasting vegetables, just like your entrees or even your salads, making salad dressings, things like that, whereas baking is going to be your breads, your desserts, cakes, cookies, pies, things like that. And that is more cost effective to do because, flour is not very expensive. Well, everything's expensive now, but, if you were looking at, meat is what's going to cost you the most in the food industry. We can't, everybody's like, are we making steak? I'm like, no, my budget doesn't allow steak. So it's just things like that you have to my budget might allow for hamburgers, but not per se filet mignon. So.
Right. So you are given a certain budget from the state or from the county, and you are set to meet certain requirements with that budget. Is that a difficult thing to do? Well, and if so, what is the most difficult aspect of that?
Well, it's difficult because right now things are so expensive. Yeah. But I always know I can fall back on my fundraising aspect of it. Because we can run fundraisers through the school and make more money for the kids to get to cook more. And also, we do those events I take kids in the spring to compete to Virginia Beach with FCCLA. So we also have to raise money that way to be able to cover hotel rooms, the cost to practice here in the classroom for that event. But, the budget, obviously I would love a lot more, but, Miss Stone has to cover what she's given is what she's given, and she has to divide it between all the programs here at the Technology Center. And I am fortunate enough to where I can, a lot of people like to eat and they do meetings and they usually order food. So I'm kind of a little bit better off as far as having money to be able to, feed back into my program with these catering events. Mrs. Stone hosts meetings here on site, and, those get covered, and we get to set up functions on site, and the kids get to see that aspect of, setting it up, prepping, cooking, setting it up, breaking it down, and clean up the whole 9 yards of it, I guess you would say.
Well, let's say, Mary Alice, that the general public reads my article and says, I want to send money to this program. I want to help these people out. How can they do that?
They could just mail a check to the Technology Center and earmark it, what it should be, what program it should go to, if they would want it to go to all programs. Do you want the address?
I can look that up. You don't have to do all that.
That would be great.
But I mean, what sort of fundraisers do you have throughout the year that they would need to keep an eye out for? This is going in.
Oh, okay. Well, when I say fundraising, I guess on Fridays we get to sell whenever the cafeteria. We have to kind of watch this. We cannot sell while the cafeteria is serving, but on Fridays I am allowed to sell chocolate chip cookies and muffins and sweet tea. So that's something we do every Friday, and it's a treat for the kids. If someone calls, a business in the community calls, I will try to do what I can to make it work in my schedule because I like to make money for my program.
Okay.
I don't per se have a menu, but if someone calls and says, hey, can you make this for me, then I try to do my best.
How often do you do catering events throughout the community?
Well, I had... Let's see, I'm trying to think. I've done several things here at the school just this year. I've not had very many businesses call me since we've kind of gotten back up and running from the pandemic. So I used to do some things for Mount Rogers. I've not heard from them in a couple of years, but I don't know. I knew a lady that worked there. She no longer works there, so I don't know if they'll reach out again. But it kind of gets word of mouth, and people will call and ask, hey, or this type thing. But
I think that's an important.
We haven't really picked back up on any of this since the pandemic.
I think that's a really important element to add to the article that most people don't know.
Yeah.
And you probably would do that for more reasonable prices than if you went out and got another caterer. An official caterer within the community, correct?
Right. Yes. And I've I'll help families that, parents sign up to feed the football team or the basketball team, and they don't really want to cook it, so they'll pay me to do it, our class to do it. So we get a lot of just stuff that's through the school system. But hopefully this article might get our name back out there and people remember that we're here.
Mm-hmm. Or like me, let people know for the first time that you're here. Because I had my daughter's first birthday party catered years ago by a distant family member, and it took me a long time to save up the money, and it was highway robbery. I mean, it was so cheap what was done. So if I ever needed anything like that again, I would want to turn to somebody like that because of let's let these high school kids do this, and that would be perfect for anything that I would need done. Should I ever get to that point again,
Yes.
So I think that's fantastic. So if I was a student and I said I'm going to go into culinary arts, what am I going to come away with, hopefully learning?
Okay. Well, my second year students, if you're with me for the 2 years, we do test with the ServSafe managers. I want you to leave here with that certification, and that is something that each person at a restaurant, food service industry somewhere should have that. Someone on shift should have that at all times. So we have went to that certification the past year or so. And then the first year they do a course that's called Food Handlers certification. It's not as official as the one for second year, but it kind of gets them just to think more about the safety and sanitation aspects of cooking. Mm-hmm. And I like the kids, you don't pay attention now when you come in here, but you'll start watching people in restaurants and how they do things. And some of them won't do what they're supposed to, what we're learning, because they slack off and things like that. But I do want them to learn the right way to do it, and they go home and hopefully go home and carry the same traits and work on, if they don't go into this industry, they at least remember some of this stuff and when they're cooking at home for themselves.
Okay.
But we cover, that is the certification they would leave here with. That's paid for by the school. We get them ready for that test. It's recognized in the industry through the National Restaurant Association. And, we're getting them ready as far as the bookwork and learning is we do the culinary aspect, but I always tell kids when they come into my classroom, I said, we're cleaning and we're washing dishes and we're cooking a lot, but if this is not for you, obviously there might be another job in the hospitality industry for you, but you at least have this background to know how it works. You could be, a manager at a hotel that has a continental breakfast, but you know how that should probably run. But I always tell them, there's all kinds of jobs in tourism, hospitality, everywhere you look. I always say if you're going out paying something and you're having a lot of fun, you're paying into that industry, and it's huge. And I have a lot of kids that are in that industry that have graduated. They didn't think they were going to be in the industry, but they are, and they're not in the capacity of being a chef per se, but they're somewhere, within that industry. Because
everybody in the world likes to eat. And
absolutely.
And I guarantee you that no matter how bad the economy gets, there's always going to be a food industry. People are not going to stop eating, no matter how high stuff gets, even though I've thought about it,
And the industry is struggling right now for people to work and, keep those places open. If I was to go in to Grays on Main right now, there should be someone there on staff at the moment that has that certification to oversee that everything is being done correctly. Mm-hmm. Not everyone that works in the kitchen has to have that. That would be a goal probably for that restaurant to have, is to get as many people ServSafe trained as they can. But not everyone has to have it. But if my kids graduate with it, I feel like it would give them a leg up, because then these employers or restaurants will see, hey, they're ServSafe certified. I don't have to send them for training. They should know what they're doing, and they can kind of be a lead shift person to make sure everything is being done safely and sanitation-wise and things like that. Prepared correctly, food stored correctly, that type.
Okay. Now.
But yeah, it's my goal for them to leave here with that passed. And for them to use it. Right. Because that obviously is not a thing. That obviously puts them higher up on the food service scale. Like they're not going to be just serving at Wendy's if they have that. You see. Right. And I had a former student that graduated 5 or 6 years ago that we did through that, and he had not that long ago, I shouldn't say, but he did not have to take that class at culinary school when he went. They knew he was already certified and he had all the credentials to take it, and he was able to just bypass that class.
What is one of the biggest success stories you've seen from former students?
I guess that would be a student that this student I was talking about. He was bound and determined. I cannot think of the exact culinary school he went to in New York, but he did go to New York culinary school, and he is now working at a restaurant in Bristol. But he was so great in class. I wished he could come back and visit and talk to the kids a little bit, but he worked really hard. Well, now he was not a baker in my class. He could not stand it. He's like, I just hate to bake. Now he likes to bake because he went to culinary school and he realized he was going to have to know some of it to a degree. And I think he got a little bit more piqued interest in it going on to school and seeing how the whole science part of it and how it works and things. So, but he's a success story. I know another young lady that I don't know. I want to think I just had her as a senior. She didn't get to finish. I didn't have her for 2 years, but she was in a baking and pastry school and was working in a baking shop in Northern Virginia. Now I think she's back in the area because she lost her job through the pandemic. I don't know if they closed, but you have those stories like that, and they move. A lot of these kids move around a lot. I had a young man that probably graduated 10 years ago. I know that he was running the kitchen in one of the regional jails that were here. Now he's not there now, but he said it was, I wasn't scared, but and then I have a young lady that works in the motel, industry. So a lot of different, and some I've kind of lost connection with, but there's several out there that just keep doing, and they're in this industry in some capacity.
Let's back up just a little bit here, and let's just simplify things a little bit.
Okay.
Would you say, and I know that you would, this is kind of just a prompting question, that living where we are in Wythe County, being in the South per se, that cooking, basic cooking, making things from scratch is more important here, thank God, than it is in other places.
Absolutely.
That makes me, proud to be from Wythe County, because we still, kids today don't know how to function without a computer. And I must confess that I'm guilty of things like online banking, and I don't balance my checkbook. But I'm grateful that my mother taught me how, because what happens if all the machines stop? And when I say the machines, I'm talking about the fast food industry, because we're so, and these things that they put in our foods and the things approved by the FDA are killing us. And, we, I think, would be healthier to eat a cake made from scratch than to go out and eat a salad that is given by some of these restaurants with all these additives and things that mess,